In 1933, the U.S. government committed an act so profound, so absolute, it stripped American citizens of their private wealth overnight. This wasn't a tax, it was a seizure, a decree that demanded every individual surrender their gold. Imagine waking up to discover that the tangible assets you held, the bedrock of your family's savings, were suddenly illegal to possess. This wasn't fiction, it was the chilling reality for millions. Under threat of a $10,000 fine or 10 years in prison, ordinary Americans were forced to exchange their gold for paper dollars. Dollars that, shortly after, were devalued by 40%. This wasn't just a historical footnote, it was a blueprint, a chilling precedent for how governments, when cornered by economic crisis, can and will act. The mechanisms used then are still present today, waiting for the right conditions to be reactivated, conditions that are rapidly converging right now. This wasn't just about gold, it was about control. Control over the economy, over the currency, and ultimately over your financial future. This isn't a uniquely American phenomenon. Throughout history, governments facing insurmountable debt or economic collapse resort to a similar playbook. Confiscate or devalue. Ancient Rome systematically debased its coinage, reducing the silver content to pay for wars and lavish spending. Citizens hoarded the purer, older coins, while worthless new ones circulated. The result was predictable. Rampant inflation, loss of trust in the currency, and eventual economic destabilization. The empire weakened from within. Fast forward to 1920s, Weimar Germany. Hyperinflation rendered the Deutschmark useless, wiping out the savings of an entire generation. People literally burned cash for warmth. Their savings became firewood. The government printed money to pay its debts, destroying the purchasing power of every citizen's bank account. The 1933 gold confiscation was America's version of this age-old pattern, a desperate measure to control a collapsing financial system. It illustrates a critical truth. When a government's back is against the wall, private property rights become secondary to state survival. The trap that led to 1933 was the rigid gold standard. Every dollar in circulation was theoretically backed by a fixed amount of gold held by the Treasury. During the Great Depression, people lost faith in banks, leading to massive runs. They rushed to withdraw their deposits, often demanding gold. This threatened to deplete the nation's gold reserves entirely. The Federal Reserve, established in 1913, found its ability to inject liquidity severely constrained by gold. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, shortly after taking office, faced a crisis of unprecedented scale. He needed to reassert government control over the monetary supply. On April 5, 1933, FDR issued Executive Order 6102. It forbade the hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates within the continental United States. This order effectively nationalized privately held gold. Citizens had to sell their gold to the Federal Reserve at the fixed price of $20.67 per troy ounce. Once the gold was collected, the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 officially changed the price of gold to $35 an ounce. This was a 40% devaluation of the dollar. The government now had significantly more dollars per ounce of gold. This allowed this Federal Reserve to print more money, expanding the money supply to combat deflation. The villain in this narrative isn't a single person, but the inherent flaw of a system that allows a central authority to manipulate currency. The Federal Reserve, with its power to create money, enabled this shift. By abandoning the gold standard, the U.S. moved towards a fiat currency system, a system where money's value is derived solely from government decree and public trust, not from a tangible asset. Today, the U.S. national debt stands at over $34 trillion. This staggering figure is increasing by trillions every single year. Servicing this debt requires immense capital, much of which is generated through continued government borrowing and central bank money creation. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet, once under $1 trillion before the 2008 crisis, now exceeds $7 trillion. That's trillions of new dollars injected into the economy. This massive expansion of the money supply, known as M2, has a direct consequence: inflation. Your purchasing power erodes silently year after year. While official inflation numbers hover around 3 to 4%, shadow statistics, which use consistent methodologies from prior decades, suggest a far higher reality. True inflation may be closer to 8% annually. This means your savings in a traditional bank account, earning perhaps 0.5% interest, are losing significant value every single day. They are being confiscated by stealth. Government and central bank policies are creating a system where saving in traditional fiat currency is a losing proposition. This forces capital into riskier assets or consumption. The push towards central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, represents an even greater threat. These programmable currencies could allow direct government control over spending and savings. Imagine a world where your savings could be frozen, taxed, or even made to expire if you don't spend them in a government-approved manner. This isn't science fiction. The stage is set. Unprecedented national debt, persistent inflation, and the looming implementation of CBDCs create a volatile environment. The next crisis is not a matter of if, but when. By 2027, experts predict a confluence of factors could trigger stage 7 of this monetary manipulation. A major sovereign debt crisis, perhaps sparked by rising interest rates or a global economic slowdown, could be the catalyst. In such a scenario, the government, facing immense pressure, might seek new avenues to stabilize the economy. This could manifest as capital controls or even a modern-day confiscation. This won't be physical gold confiscation, at least not initially. Instead, it could be digital confiscation, negative interest rates applied directly to your savings accounts. Or it could be a wealth tax implemented to address the debt, targeting accumulated assets, including retirement funds and other investments. The introduction of CBDCs, expected to gain significant traction by 2027, would make such measures far easier to implement and enforce. Your digital money would become programmable. This isn't fear-mongering, it's a historical pattern replaying itself with modern tools. The goal remains the same, the state gaining control over private wealth in times of crisis. The 1933 gold confiscation was a stark reminder of government power. Today, with digital currencies and massive debt, the potential for similar interventions is even greater. So, how do you protect yourself? Diversification is key. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket, especially if that basket is entirely digital and controlled by central authorities. Consider tangible assets, physical gold and silver, held outside the banking system. These have served as true money for millennia, retaining value through countless crises. Explore alternative, decentralized assets like certain cryptocurrencies. While volatile, they offer an exit from the traditional financial system's control. Invest in real estate or other income-producing assets that are less susceptible to monetary debasement. Focus on things that generate value independent of currency fluctuations. Educate yourself. Understand how money works, how central banks operate, and the historical precedents of financial collapse. Knowledge is your greatest defense. The future of your savings hinges on your awareness and proactive measures today. Don't wait until it's too late. The blueprint from 1933 is on the table, and history rarely repeats itself exactly, but it often rhymes.